Welcome to the BrandWise podcast, where we talk about the big branding moves that business owners are making and the why behind it. I'm your host, Jess Freeman, here to help you be wise and be bold. This episode is a little bit different than what we usually talk about on the podcast, but I think it's important because there's lots of talk out there about a recession. Are we headed to a recession? Are we in one? What is going to happen over the next few months? And with inflation and tariffs and everything, like the cost of things might get more expensive, obviously. And so I wanted to talk about spending money on SEO during a recession, because when or if the economy starts dipping, a lot of people start cutting marketing out of their budget. They're like, I need to cut costs. Let me stop investing in SEO, or stop spending money on ads, or stop spending money on social media, whatever it is. And it's often a knee-jerk reaction, and sometimes kind of a costly one, because as you'll see, I have some data and research that shows that continuing to invest specifically in SEO during a recession isn't just a good idea. It might be something that actually sets you up to do better than your competitors when the economy kind of bounces back. So I have some information for B2B, but also B2C people. And this really is going to focus on SEO. I know obviously there are lots of things that can fall into marketing and marketing budgets, but since I'm really in the SEO realm, I wanted to focus on that. And I want to start with, why do businesses cut SEO during a recession? Honestly, because SEO typically feels like a very slow burn. As I've mentioned before on this podcast and on social media, my email list, SEO takes time. Like, just because you put up a blog post today doesn't mean it's going to show up in Google tomorrow or next week even. And so when everyone's in panic mode and you're trying to cut spending but still show up, you need more leads, you're feeling frantic about needing clients, slow isn't sexy. But recessions don't stop people from searching. If anything, we search more because we want answers and we're trying to troubleshoot on our own. But if you're not showing up in those searches, your competitors are. And so I want you to still lean in to SEO, whether that's DIYing it or courses or hiring somebody, whatever that means. And so let's talk about some of the data that I found. Brands that maintain marketing output during a recession usually see 3.5 times more visibility than those who pull back on marketing or kind of like go dark. And I know that there are a lot of people, myself included, that can sometimes feel a little strange about marketing during recessions, political turmoil, like when things are going crazy in the world. But we shouldn't go dark because we all still have bills to pay. Another stat, inbound leads cost 62% less than doing outbound marketing. Another study found that the top organic search result, meaning like if your blog post or my blog post shows up organically in a Google search, that top result gets 27.6% of the clicks, while the top ad gets 3.17%. So while it might feel easier to just spend money on ads, you might get better results and more clicks if you just work on organic SEO. Now, real quick, I want to talk about B2B brands. So if you are someone who serves other business owners, I know there are some dietitians and personal trainers who specialize in working with other entrepreneurs or coaches or corporate people, anything like that. So if you are B2B, you know that we often have a longer sales cycle, but even during a recession, those longer sales cycles don't stop. They just take a little bit longer because people spend more time researching, comparing, and weighing options because money might be tight. We want to make a good decision. They want to see results. And so they're going to go to Google. And research shows that 76% of website traffic for B2B businesses comes from search, majority of it being organic search. Now, when people have researched previous recessions in both 2008 and 2020, the businesses that stayed consistent with SEO, meaning they kept publishing blog content, they were updating their site copy, they were optimizing for new search trends or kind of keeping up with the Google changes, they saw quicker recoveries, meaning once things kind of settled down and people started spending again, they had a fuller load of clients than those who had kind of stopped doing SEO, which is really smart because SEO, the way SEO works and the way Google kind of looks at our websites, it's not really just this like tap that you can turn off and expect to pick up where you left off. Because if you lose momentum, it's typically more difficult to come back. If you pause it too long, you're back at square one. Now, this doesn't mean you literally have to post a blog post every single week, and if you skip a week, your traffic is going to tank. That is not what I'm saying. But if you stop working on SEO for 6 months to a year, you're gonna see probably a downward trend in your traffic. Now that we've talked B2B, I also want to talk B2C. So those of you who are dietitians and personal trainers for just normal people, the rest of everybody else who's not B2B, I've heard from so many of you that you feel like your audience is not really engaging on Instagram. They're tired of being sold to. They are just not as engaged. You're not seeing the results from Instagram. And while I am not anti-Instagram, I don't think you need to leave the platform. Part of the issue is that people are searching for legitimate information, like, best protein for endurance athletes, postpartum meal ideas, budget-friendly workout plans. And yes, some of this can show up on Instagram, but we all know there's only so much you can put into a carousel or a reel or a story. And all of that detail really needs to live on your website. I came across a case study from another actual designer or agency that worked with a fitness brand during COVID. And they really leaned into SEO during COVID, and they saw a 600% increase in traffic, a 10 times boost in conversions, and which equaled out to a 200% ROI on their investment. So it's easy to see from all these stats that there's a lot of ROI from SEO, but like I mentioned earlier, it is not instant gratification. It is a very slow burn typically, especially for those of you who are like me and it's just you in your business, or maybe you and a VA or, one or two people. You're not an agency, you're not a corporation that has a whole content marketing team. It's going to likely be a slower burn because you have your week full of client work and checking in with people and all this other stuff you have to work on, plus SEO. But when SEO is done well, the payoff is so worth it. But SEO is so good about putting in the work and getting you out in front of people while you're doing your work. And I think I've mentioned this story on the podcast before, or maybe I've only shared it on Instagram. I'm not sure. But I have a blog post that I published 4 or 5 years ago, and it is showing up at the top of Google search results. It was featured by the Google AI overview. If you've seen the AI overview results that show up in Google search, it often links to somebody, or I should say multiple websites, and it's linking to that post and has brought me clients. I have another blog post that I don't believe is being linked in Google AI results or anything, but it is bringing in clients, has brought in multiple clients, I know for a fact. And that post is now 3 or 4 years old. And I'm not sharing these posts. They're not linked in my, email sequence. They're not pinned at the top of my blog or anything. Like, they are literally just existing out there in Google and bringing in clients. I actually just did a Reels challenge, like my own. It wasn't with anybody, where I posted a Reel every single day in April. And I was just doing it to see like what kind of traction or views I could get. I was definitely not expecting like, ooh, this is going to go viral and I'm going to get millions of views, but just wanted to see like what would happen. I love an experiment, okay? I got like 78 new followers, but I lost 20 some. I did see an increase in clicks, like, over to my website links and such. But I didn't get any inquiries. Like, I had a very specific CTA in almost every single reel, and I didn't get a single inquiry. And while some, yes, could definitely argue it was the type of reel or the messaging, and I will fully own that, I cannot understate how much I love SEO, especially after this little experiment. Because I recorded 30 different reels, and they were all talking head reels, meaning I wasn't lip singing or, doing some kind of trend. I was teaching in every single reel. And I did get more engagement, but again, that didn't lead to anything. And in 2 weeks, those reels are going to be totally forgotten about. Not even in 2 weeks, probably by this week, they're going to be totally forgotten about, never to be seen again. And while yes, I could always like reshare them to my stories in the future and have that, information ready to share with people, great. But all this work, and it's not going to do anything for my business in the long term compared to those blog posts that I published 4 and 5 years ago. Now, to be clear, again, I'm not anti-social media. I really enjoy social media. It's all part of your ecosystem. So if you are listening to this and you're like, okay, I want to start like leaning into SEO, I have a few quick tips for you to get started. And I would start sooner rather than later because, again, it's a slow burn. And so if we are moving into a recession, I want you to already have some SEO kind of building up. I don't want you to wait until the recession starts and then start working on SEO. So go look at any of your content. If you've already have some blogs up, go look at those and see if there's any posts that you can tweak. Maybe if you can recalibrate some keywords or add some keywords like affordable, budget-friendly, DIY, cost-saving, to really help position any of your self-paced programs, digital products, anything like that. Refresh any of that content also. Like, you don't have to start writing all new content. Then once you do that, then start creating helpful, trust-building content. Answer real questions that people are Googling. If you are someone who serves local clients, whether that means you meet them locally or just you're open to working with people locally, you could lean into some local SEO as well. It might mean that you just create a location-specific page on the back of your website to kind of see if you can bring in some of that local traffic, and then start tracking everything. Set some goals, watch your website traffic, look at your analytics. And if you're overwhelmed by analytics, literally just like go today, look at your analytics, write down, what your website traffic was for April or March or both. Like, just kind of like, what is the overall like site traffic for March and April, so that then you can start like have that baseline. And I say March and April because like if you've launched or if you did some kind of, I don't know, maybe you posted like 3 times in April and only 2 times in March, like whatever. We just kind of want to have a baseline to work from. And then in 3 months and 6 months, you can kind of compare your website traffic to see if anything is increasing yet. Again, it's a slow burn, so it's unlikely that you're going to see a big jump at 3 months. 6 months, potentially, but I always tell clients, it really depends on where you're starting. If you don't have much SEO, it's going to take much longer unless you are like, I'm going real hard for SEO. I'm going to dive in to the deep end and start blogging like once or twice a week, every single week. I'm optimizing everything. I'm hiring somebody. You might see faster traction compared to someone who's like, okay, I'm going to start blogging for SEO, post once every other week. Not that that's a bad thing. Like, do what's sustainable, but I'm trying to set realistic expectations about when you can see results from SEO, because it takes effort to get going. But then once you're spinning and you're building up that traffic and Google is starting to learn who you are and trust you, it's going to build momentum, and that momentum just keeps building upon itself. And I wanted to show you one last stat just to prove how much corporations really love SEO. There was a stat that said 80% of enterprise CMOs, so the chief marketing officers, refused to cut SEO budgets. Like, they knew the risk of what happens if you stop working on your SEO. And they were like, we're going to lean in. The last thing I want to say is, of course, I'm here to help if you need some SEO assistance. I have a few different SEO packages. I also have some SEO trainings. I don't like to call them courses because they are not like, here's 27 videos that will take you an entire weekend to watch. It's very cut and dry, like, do X, Y, and Z. This is how you write really good SEO friendly blog posts or podcast episodes or anything like that. So I will link to my services and those trainings in the show notes for you. If you have questions, feel free to reach out. But I hope this encourages you and challenges you to start leaning into SEO to help your business kind of stay afloat over the next few years as we kind of try to survive whatever's going to happen in this economy. Are you a squiggle or a square? Go to justcreatives.com/quiz to find out where your brand ends up and find out what a square or squiggle even means. If you enjoyed today's show, be sure to leave a review or share it on Instagram, and tune in next week for another episode.